Okay, welcome guys. It's me, Mr. Rogar, here to give you a lesson from Chapter 8. We just finished up the Chapter 7 tests. Hopefully I'll have those graded for you pretty soon, within the next day or so. We'll give you the chance, just like always, to work on some test corrections if you need to. So, but I decided, and in fact, administration kind of would like us to start making more of these videos, and it makes sense with math because starting now, we're getting into some new material. Up until this point, with the homeschooling and the online schooling, we've just been doing review stuff, but now we're going to get into some brand new material, so I figured it might be wise to make a couple videos to kind of walk you through the material and then give you a chance to practice it on your own via some of the homework. So this is section 8.1.1, as you can see behind me. How can I describe the data? So we're talking about measures of central tendency. This is stuff that a lot of you have been asking about for a while now. Mean, median, and range. You've been seeing that show up on your easy CBM quizzes that we've taken periodically. So now next time you have those, you're gonna have some background and you'll know how to solve those. So go ahead, and if you've got your journal out and you want to take some notes, you can label your table of contents right there. What I would suggest as we go through this lesson is when there's things that you need to write down, go ahead and just pause the video, write down what you need to, and then pick up right where you left off. So it'll be pretty slick, all right? So let me go to the next slide here. So many of you have probably heard of the United States Census. In fact, now in the year 2020, the United States government is actually performing the 2020 census right now. It's something they do about every 10 years. And basically it's just to kind of find out some information about the population that's living in an area. So like you hear in the book, I'll just tell you, it says they try to figure out things like how the population is changing, where people live, what kind of families exist, what kind of language do they speak. So just lots of information that they can then use to kind of help decide how they want to allocate money to help cities and towns and areas based upon their populations. So they're doing a census this year, and what we would have done in class had we been here is we would have gathered some data. So we would have determined what is the typical family size for the students in our class. And so we were going to gather with little sticky dots, and we were going to create a dot plot that we were going to then put on the board and use as our data to learn these next few things. Well, I took some liberties and made up 10 pieces of data since we don't have y'all here to give us the data. So we'll go ahead and use the data that I've come up with to go through this lesson. But to start off with, I need to give you a key word. And that key word will be range. So as you can see behind me, again, pause the video if you need to write this down. But the range of a set of data is defined as the difference between the highest and the lowest values. So in this example here on the TV, you can see some representations of some people and their heights below. So you can see they go from smallest up to tallest. Basically, in order to determine the range, all you have to do is take the largest height, which in this case was 180 centimeters, and from that you will subtract the smallest height, which is 150 centimeters. So you can see in the expression here below, or the equation, it says 180 centimeters minus 150 equals 30 centimeters. So the range with this set of data is 30 centimeters. Okay? So let me tilt you over this way. Hopefully you'll be able to see this set of data okay. I've put up 10 somewhat random pieces of data. Personally, I grew up in a family of 8, 2 parents, 6 kids. Right now I've got a family of 4, me and Mrs. Rogar, and then 2 boys. This one represents Mrs. Rogar's family growing up. She was the youngest of 8 kids, and then a mom and dad, so 10 kids or 10 people in that family. So anyway, here's 10 pieces of data to represent the numbers of people in different families. So a couple of things I can do here. Number one, I can just look at the data. In this case, I have a small enough sample that it'll be pretty easy to determine which number is the smallest. So as I look through the data, I'll read them out loud for you in case you can't see them that well. We've got 8, 4, 3, 10, 5, 6, 5, 4, 4, and 6. So it looks like the 3 right here is going to be my smallest piece of data. And as I read through that, I noticed that the largest piece of data was the 10. So if I use what I learned about range over there, take the largest value of 10, subtract from that the smallest value of 3, and I get 7. So in this case, I would say that the range of this set of data equals 7. Okay? It's a bad 7. It's still a bad 7. Good enough. So that's an example of range. Okay? So let me give you the next thing. In fact, let me close this thing on the computer really quick. Okay, so the next vocab word that I'm going to give you is median. So again, go ahead and pause the video, get that definition in your notes. The median is the middle number in an ordered set of data. So there's two key pieces of information there. First is the middle, and second is ordered. Okay? Before you can find the median, it's very important that you first of all put the number in order, or the data in order. Okay, so we're going to go from smallest piece of data up to the largest piece of data. So our little chart of people and their height is already in order for us from shortest up to tallest. And we've got 5 people in this set of data, so that's pretty easy to identify the middle, right? Would just be right here. The third person leaves 2 people to the left, 2 people to the right, so the very middle is right here, which means the median height amongst this set of data is 170 centimeters. Okay? So if we go back over here to our set of data, we will kind of go through the same thing. The first thing we have to do is put the numbers in order from least to greatest. Okay? So we already know the 3 is the smallest. Okay? I'm going to cross them off as we go. So 4, there's 1, 2, 3 4s. So here's another key piece, is there may be multiple numbers of the same number multiple times. We don't put it in there only once. We put it in there every time that it shows up. So we have 3 4s. So then I'm going to rewrite it like this. Okay? Then we've got 1, 2 5s. So here's a 5 and a 5. We've got 1, 2 6s. So there's a 6 and a 6. And we're down to an 8 and then a 10. Okay, so now we've organized our data in order from least to greatest. So now we need to just find the very middle number. Well, if I count here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces of data. So that means the very middle of 10 would be, what would it be? Well, we can say 5, but if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and say that's my middle, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers to the right of that 5, and I've got 1, 2, 3, only 4 numbers to the left of that 5. So that's not the very middle, right? So the example that we had before using the height with the little characters on the TV, that was easy because it was an odd number. So it was very easy to identify what is the true middle, right? But in cases like this, where you have an even set of numbers, you have to do this. we're going to basically identify the two numbers in the middle. Okay, so if we were to say that 5 and that 5, we now have 4 digits to the left of those 5s, and we have 4 digits to the right of those 5s. So we can now take those 2 digits, add them together, and divide them by 2 to find out what is the median. Well, in this case, it's pretty easy because they're both 5s, right? So we know that if we take 5 plus 5 divided by 2, I'm going to end up with 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So in this case, my median equals 5. Okay? So there's an example of median. We've got one more thing to cover, and that will be mean. So we go back over here, get you a definition. The mean is the average number in a set of data. So there's an example right here, maybe somewhat hard to see on there, I'm not sure, but basically all you have to do to find the mean is add up all the numbers in your data set and then divide them by the total amount of numbers that you have. So in this case, for example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different numbers. I add all those numbers up, and they add up to 30. So then I take that number of 30, I divide it by 6, which is the total number of numbers that I had to start with, and that tells me that my mean, or my average, is 5. Okay, so mean is a very helpful way to figure out what is kind of the middle of the data, especially when you don't have something called an outlier. And we'll get into outliers here in just a second. When you do have outliers, then the median is often the best way to identify the true middle of a data set. So let's go back over here. Here's our data set. I'll erase these since I kind of crossed them out already. And we'll get rid of that. Okay, so basically all I'm doing here is my first step is I'm going to add all of this data together. So if you wanted, you could put little plus signs between every one of them and just do some addition. These are small, simple numbers, so we can probably do it quickly in our heads. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 plus 4 is 15. 15 plus 5 is 20. 20 plus 5 is 25. 25 plus 6 is 31. 31 plus 6 is 37. 37 plus 8 is 45. And 45 plus 10 is 55. So the total value of all those numbers added together is 55. And as we know from counting before, we have 10 pieces of information here. So I'm going to say 55, the total, divided by 10, and whatever that answer is will be my average, or my mean. Okay, so 55 divided by 10 is equal to 5.5, so my mean equals 5.5. Okay. Now, the last thing, and I don't think I have a slide for it. Let me look really quick. No, I don't. So the last word was going to be an outlier. So I'll write that up on the board here for you in a second, but an outlier is basically a piece of data that is either much bigger or much smaller than the rest of the data. Okay, so if we look over here, there's really not anything too out of line here, and that's makes sense when we consider that our median was 5 and our mean is 5.5. They're pretty close to each other, so that would tell us that there's probably not really any significant outliers in this case. An outlier would be, say we add another piece of data here, and say it was a 28. If we suddenly throw a 28 into the mix there, it's going to significantly change our mean, right? So the 28 in this case is what would be considered an outlier. Okay, so go ahead and make sure that gets in your notes as well. Outlier. And again, it is a piece of data that is either much smaller or much larger than all the other sets of data that you're working with. Okay? So I'm going to put one more thing up on the screen for you here. And then I'm going to have you kind of work on this as a little bit of homework, along with what I will give you. Well, I don't know. I'll put it in check Canvas. I'll decide for sure what we want to do in Canvas. Probably, I'm thinking I'll have you answer these questions along with one of the questions from the CPM ebook, so we can give you a little break from Moby Max for a minute. So, anyway, here's the situation we're looking at. Okay. It says once each day, Robbie and his goat Sandra track the depth of the water in their local creek. So here's Robbie and Sandra hanging out in the creek, tracking the water depths. And their first 9 measurements are listed right here. So these are in inches. So you've got a 16, 15, 13, 12, 1, 7, 14, 11, 9, and 11. So I can tell you right now, looking at that set of data, we do have an outlier or two there, right? Because 1 is pretty significantly smaller than everything else out there, right? So that could kind of skew our data a little bit. So what I want you to do is answer these questions using that set of data, okay? First of all, what is the median of that data set? Second of all, what is the mean of the data set? And third, what is the range of their data? Okay, so pause the video, leave that question up on the screen for you. That's going to be part of your homework. I'm going to have you submit that in Canvas. And this is actually question number, give me a second here, 8-2. Okay, so I'll write that right here as well. 8-2. So you're going to do question 8-2. I'm not going to necessarily make you show all your work in there, but at least put 8-2, label median, mean, and range, and tell me what the value is for each of those. And then on top of that, I'm going to have you solve question 8-7 from the CPM ebook using the same format, using the text submission in Canvas. Okay? So check Canvas. That'll have all that detail in there for you. But hopefully that helps a little bit of understanding some of this new material that we're getting into now. Appreciate you guys. Good luck. Miss you. Hopefully I'll get to see you soon. Feel free to contact me if you need any help. We'll talk to you later. Bye.